Hello and welcome back to the studio here in Northumberland. What I'm going to do today is a little bit different because it's acrylics, but rather than doing it on canvas like I normally do, it's acrylics on paper, and it's watercolour paper. The Langton Rough, £140, the same watercolour paper that I always use. The acrylics I'm going to use, if you haven't got a Stay Wet palette by now, get yourself one, because they save you a lot of money for the paint that you don't waste. Because you know what acrylics is like, you have to throw them away at the end of the painting because they're dried up so quickly. These will keep anything moist and glistening and ready to paint with for weeks and weeks and weeks. Just make sure you put the lid on at the end of your painting session. I'm not going to do any drawing for this painting whatsoever, just straight on with the paint. And I'm using my same brushes that I use for my watercolours as well. The Aquafine brushes, and as you can see by the state of that, these are used for acrylics. And so I've got cobalt blue and a lot of water into this. There's my cobalt blue. Again, System 3 acrylics. I've got a little bit of white into that as well, titanium white. And all I'm doing, that was a stupid beginner's mistake, wasn't it? I didn't pre-wet the paper. Pre-wet first, just like you would with a watercolour. Loads of water from the top, and I'm coming about 2/3 of the way down. Like so. And because I'm painting the acrylics on watercolour paper, I'm going to treat them just like a watercolour. There's my cobalt blue and titanium white mixed. Put it on and come all the way down. A very simple painting this. A little bit stronger I think at the top. Yeah, that's better. Come all the way down. Don't worry about any lines that I've got there, because as it dries out they'll all smooth out. Now I'm going to wash out, squeeze out, soak up the water at the bottom there. Wash my brush out, squeeze out, and just take a few clouds out. Very, very simple. Just like painting a watercolour. But of course with acrylics, once it's dried, unlike watercolour, you're not going to be able to move it. Once it's dried, it's there for life. Oh, another one here I think. There. That'll do. A very, very simple sky. If I want to create some cloud shadow in there, as I'm taking out there, look, drop a bit back down in there. And don't fiddle and have it finished whilst it's still wet. Again, just like in a watercolour. There. Very simple sky. Now, I've finished with my 1.5 inch wash brush now. So now I'm going to my 3/4 inch flat brush, again Aquafine. Something very strange, and I don't know the reason why, but you can imagine if this were a watercolour, that sky is still sopping wet, you can see it glistening. So obviously I would have to wait for all this to dry before I could start painting the distance, because otherwise it would bleed up and into the sky. With acrylics, not so. I've got a little bit of blue and a tiny, tiny touch of Payne's grey, just there, blue and grey, a little bit of white, titanium white, and plenty of water again, a bit more blue, that's better, and like I say, that's still wet, just going like so. Now you can imagine if that were watercolour, that would be bleeding all the way up. All that's happening here is a little bit of softening on the top, which is good for your distance effect. Wash out, squeeze out, and I'm going to clean up along the bottom there. And any softening that I don't want, just soften on the top there, like so. And lots of people say, well, what's the point in painting acrylics like a watercolour? Why not just paint a watercolour? Good question. Apart from, with acrylics, even though I'm treating it like watercolour, I can still put light on top of dark, which of course you can't do in watercolours. Clean up along the bottom again, and that's some distant hills in. There. Now I've got a little bit, still with my 3/4 inch brush, a little bit of raw sienna mixed with a touch of Naples yellow. Again, plenty of water in there. And all I'm doing, coming across here, all the way across, and then bring it further forward slightly. Fading out there to that side. Now, tiny, tiny touch of raw umber into that. And that's a stubble field. And to give the impression of stubble at a distance like that, just get some lines in. And wash my brush out, squeeze it out between my fingers, and look, just take a bit of paint out. And again, take a bit out here. With the corner of the brush, look. Now more brush. There. Isn't that simple? Just clean up along the bottom there. Easy peasy. Now I've changed to my number 8 round brush. Again, aquafine. And I've got hooker's green, bit of that, and a lot of burnt sienna. There. So it's mainly burnt sienna in that mix. A little bit of water into that. And all I'm doing over here, you get some middle distance trees in like so. Coming all the way down to this middle distance line here. And a bit here. Just tapping. That way I'm leaving gaps in it as well. But where I'm leaving the gaps, you can see what I've painted before through the gaps. Don't just have big clumps of white paper. Now a little bit of burnt sienna just by itself. When I say just by itself, I mean with water, but no other colour. Bit of that there, look. Bit on here. And finally, a little bit of cobalt blue. Down to the bottom there, look. And now just soften it up a little bit with tapping on with my finger. Digital art. There. Now I've changed to my rigger brush, number 4 rigger. Again, aquafine, and that one is looking a bit clean. So we'll soon sort that. I'm starting off with a little bit of raw umber. With a rigger brush, it's a fine brush, so it's not going to hold that much paint. So I'll get enough water into it so that it flows. See? What I'm doing here, we'll have a few tall trees. That's just raw umber. if you want a wider stroke, press the brush on harder so it spreads out, gives you a wider stroke. Quite a few more of these now. And I'm just dancing the rigger brush around on the paper now. Let it create the twigs for you. As I say, that's just raw umber for the time being. That's got a bit faint there. A bit more paint into it. And a couple more still. Now some more twigs. Twigs and boughs. And just squiggling the brush around on the paper. Squiggling, that's a new technical term for you. Now I want a little bit of Naples yellow. A few bits of that. Here and there to the right hand side of where I've put the raw umber. Don't need it everywhere, in every single tree. It's just a few touches coming down the right hand side. Just to start and capture a little bit of light on there. And a bit on that one. Now, some Payne's Grey. Tap that out there. Plenty of water into that. And we'll have that down the left-hand side. Here and there. Even I went quiet for a bit then. Just dragging it down. A little bit stronger at the base. Oops, that was a daub. Which I'm not worried about because it'll come in for the foliage. Now you can see how that Payne's Grey down the left hand side really highlights where I've put the Naples yellow. Dark and light. And here and there spreading the brush a little bit more, get it thicker down there. A little bit more on that one, I think. That's better. And invent a few more twigs at this stage now. just with my paint spray there, look. Now let's have some growth going up those trees, and again just with paint spray, but I don't want much water into it, and I'm loading the brush flat like that, the rigger brush, look. Load it flat like so. Now just lay the brush against the tree and drag outwards, look. Bit of rough on those tree trunks. Like so. Now, I've got a lot of foliage on top of there, and I'm airing towards autumnal. That's why I've got some burnt sienna in that lot over there. So you would think foliage on the closer up ones is when I go through my smallish brush again and paint individual leaves because they're close up. Don't do that. Bigger brush, 3/4 inch flat. Now I'm starting off with a little bit of raw sienna, and I'm loading the brush flat like so. Okay. Just watch this, a little tap just to get rid of surplus paint a little bit like so. Now dabble. The flat of the brush. Now a little bit of raw umber, this time mixed with burnt sienna. So there's my raw umber, burnt sienna into it, and again load the brush flat like so. At this stage, any edges that you don't like, go in there with your finger and soften it, look. Again, a bit of digital art. We'll have a little bit of that down the base as well, look, like so, with the side of the brush. A 3/4 inch brush is such a useful brush. And a little bit coming down here. And finally, in the top bits, a little bit of paint spray. Pull my paint spray out now. And this time, with the side of the brush again, just tap. Back in with my finger, and there, not a single leaf was painted. Go for the effect rather than the detail. Now it's back to my, still with my 3/4 inch flat wash brush. A little bit of raw sienna, plenty of water into this, and big foreground bit there, look. There's a few colours going in this, but this is raw sienna to start with. All the way across. And down to the bottom. ish. Now a little bit of burnt sienna, just a touch of burnt sienna, plenty of water into it. I love burnt sienna, it gives anything a lovely glow. And a touch of raw umber. Again, plenty of water into it. Look, loads of water there, flowing. Now, just with a clean damp brush, I'm going to merge those colours. Clean damp brush and just stroke across that. Again with a clean damp brush. And all I'm going to do is lightly it over there, but a little bit stronger this time. Take out some strips of paint. And you notice how the angle's changing as I'm coming across the painting, look. And what I mean when I say that, as you can see, these are coming this way, then straighter, and then it's going that way. That's your recession. That's helping you into the picture. Now, before I do the shadows, I need a little bit of hooker's green with burnt sienna into it. And we'll just have a few little lumpy bits there. Lumpy bits, another technical term for you. It's just to split fields. Not so much a hedgerow, there's a grass line in between fields. And I don't need to go all the way across with that, but it's just to show a stop to this one before that one. Now I need that to dry for a couple of minutes before I do the shadows from the trees. Now I've got, again, hooker's green and burnt sienna, but even more burnt sienna into it, so there's hardly any green showing. And this is just for a few touch-up bits here and there. Over there in the far distance, look, I'm just popping a few bits on there, look, where the hills end and the fields start. Far, far away, bushy trees. And also, whilst I'm in with that colour, that mix, sorry, we'll have a little bit of green into those as well. Just a few bits. Don't want the green to kill it. And again, in with my finger. Now with my rigger brush, we'll have a bit of Payne's Grey, plenty of water into it. Just from my rigger brush, all I'm doing, we have a load of birds coming into the trees here, heading towards the trees. But these, as you'll notice, are getting smaller as we go further away. Okay. Now for some shadow. And for this, I've got a little bit of deep violet there, or as I call it, violent violet, mixed with Payne's Grey. The deep violet is a very strong, powerful colour. Be careful how much you put in. And now, all I'm going to do Just touch the base of the tree there and bring that out. And across the ground like so. And now start to spread them out a little bit. For the shadow from my trees. Back to my big brush, my 3/4 inch, and I'll have a little bit of that same colour. Just tapping in there. And a little bit there. And a little bit from those there. Now all I need to do is take the tape off. And there we go, finished painting. It looks like a watercolour, but again, as you've seen, I can put different colours on top, light on top of dark, because it's acrylic. And watercolour paper will stand the acrylic and stand the hard wear that acrylic gives to paper. And the Langton rough paper is just so hard wearing, and that's why I use it all the time. Langton £140 rough. If you've got a problem with acrylics, get the book, Acrylics for the Absolute Beginner. It's on my website, so have a look. Lots of things on there. The Aquafine brushes and System 3 paints. Dale O'Reilly System 3. Lovely colours, lovely paints. That's not all of what I've used, but that's some of them. But System 3, they're only £2.75 a tube on my website. So give them a go. They're good fun. Thank you very much. See you again soon.